All right, so this is going to be a review of If, written and directed by John Krasinski. Just came out, I believe, like last weekend or so. I'll say how I feel about it in a second. So we have Bee in this, played by Kaylee Fleming. Her mom passed away, and she's going through a similar situation with her father, played by John Krasinski in this, where he's going to have surgery pretty soon. I believe it was heart surgery, and she's worried about, potentially losing her dad, just like she did her mom. The dad's trying to make light of it to make things better, but it's clearly affecting her. So she's she's living with her grandmother. She's living in this building, and she sees this creature run past her and go into this upper apartment in that building. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on with that. And that turns out to be an imaginary friend. And she ends up meeting Cal, played by Ryan Reynolds in this. And he can also see the imaginary friends. And so he's taking it upon himself to find them new kids, or try to. And he's having trouble with that. So she takes on, the job of finding new kids with Cal. And because she's a kid and has more imagination and things like that, she thinks she can really help him. So we can get to positives, but I did not like this movie. I found it annoying. I found it boring in places. But let's talk about positives. So the movie does look good cinematography-wise. I do think there's imagination here at points. The different characters, even though I have problems with the effects that we'll get to, the different characters, I thought that was, I thought that was done well. There's nice variation amongst them to the point where it's like, why is this an imaginary friend? Like, one of them was a glass of water with an ice cube in it. It's like, wait, what? But that actually was explained, and that part was kind of funny. I think the performances are all good. Kaylee Fleming, this young actress in this, I thought she did a good job, even though her character is kind of bland. John Krasinski, he does a bit much, trying to be like the fun dad, but I get why he's doing it. I mean, he's almost never in a hospital gown in the hospital. You'll only ever see him in the hospital, really. And it's like he's just lounging around, just telling jokes, which can be a bit much, but I get why he was doing it, to get his, to make his daughter feel better about the situation. And I thought he was good in the movie. I think the standout here, though, is definitely Ryan Reynolds as Cal. I like the idea of, him being cursed with this, where he's like, he just could never move on with his life. It's almost to the point where you can see him being suicidal at a certain point. This is like his own personal hell, where he's just kind of done with it and things like that. He's very jaded about the whole situation. And I thought that was kind of fun. He's got that, Ryan Reynolds charm that's kind of gotten old, but, you need something to latch onto in this movie. And I thought he was the one thing that I could consistently be like, all right, I can kind of identify with this character, because these imaginary friends, they're really annoying, especially one. I liked the scene. They're going through this place where these imaginary friends live, and it keeps changing in this really fun way. Like, I thought that was fun. There was, the locations keep changing. At one point they're in space, and there's a musical performance that they're on stage for and stuff like that. If the whole movie would have been that, I could have had fun with this and been more engaged. And then there's also two moments having to do with two of the imaginary friends towards the end that were legitimately touching moments, right? That weren't forced like a lot of this other stuff. And I like that too. It's like, well, even though I don't think this should exist, there is kind of something there at points, just not throughout the whole thing. We could talk about why this movie doesn't work now. The first thing, the obvious elephant in the room that people have been talking about, we've seen this before. So when I was a kid, there was a cartoon show on Cartoon Network, I believe it was on Cartoon Network, called Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And basically it was this foster home, and this home where imaginary friends would be brought there whenever their kids were too old for them, or whatever's going on. Whenever they're giving up their imaginary friend, they could come live there. I can't remember if they would get adopted too by other kids or whatever, but basically it's this. And as you're watching this movie, and they're going through this home where these imaginary friends all live and interact with each other and things like that, talk about their kids, they miss their kids, things like that. You can't help but think about that show, to the point where it's like, this has to be deliberate. So the main imaginary friend in here, right? He's this big purple thing, so annoying, just constantly sneezing and messing things up. that character was really getting on my nerves. Of all these imaginary friends, some of them were getting on my nerves, but this one specifically was annoying me so bad. Just a complete garbage character. Um, but his name is Blue, and the main character. I'm sure if you've heard of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, you've seen this character. His name was also Blue. Now, in this, his name is Blue, but he's purple because his kid was colorblind. All right, cool. There's some different details there. But at the end of the day, like, really, you have all these similarities, and the main imaginary friend in here happens to have the same name, happens to also be named Blue. That's crazy. There's such this forced, unnatural sentiment in here where, like, it's so cheesy with these lines and things. It starts off with this montage of the main character being a little girl with her parents, and then later on, when she's in the hospital room with her dad, he's saying little things like, "Oh, this should be a great story." And she's like, "Moving to New York," and he's like, "No, just being a kid." I mean, it's line after line after line like that. With the score too, also feeling like it really needs to be as kind of sentimental and touching as it could possibly be. It's to the point where you want to puke at times. I mean, it is constant, and it doesn't help that none of that really. You don't really feel engaged in a lot of that. I was falling asleep. There's a big moment towards the end between Bee and her father, and I was falling asleep. It contradicts itself a lot, where they're trying to find new kids for the kid, new kids for the imaginary friends, but like nobody can see them, and I don't think they ever really fully explain why Bee can even see them. Then it becomes this convoluted thing where it's like, oh well, we have to bring the imaginary friends to their well their old kids, right? And so they have to like find them and things like that. And there's this special thing. I guess this is kind of a spoiler. They have to do like this special thing so that their old kids that are like grown as hell or can actually remember them. And then they kind of glow and things like that. But then it's like, okay, they're back to square one after that, though, right? But then they go completely against that later on. It's just, I was like, why make this without Ryan Reynolds? His character, and there's certain moments, but largely without Ryan Reynolds, this movie would be completely unwatchable. I thought about giving this trash. I really did. I don't think this is a good movie at all. But because of those certain moments, and because I like Ryan Reynolds in this, I will give this a rental. But it's just barely getting that. This is completely unnecessary. This is like John Krasinski, man. I'm sorry, but it's this doesn't work, right? The voice acting, I guess, is good for the imaginary friend characters. Also, I didn't say the effects for the imaginary friends. Maybe not so much when they're just there on the screen by themselves or with each other, but when they're interacting with human beings, especially Ryan Reynolds. There's a scene where he's in this girl's room talking to Blue, and they're like arguing with each other. It doesn't look right. It's so obvious that these things are not in the same room with each other and things like that. They didn't do a good job making that work, making that scene believable. That took me out of it pretty much every time. And it's like, yeah, man, what? Okay, these things are there. They just can't be seen. And it seems like they can affect the world around them, but nobody ever knows they're there. It's just, it's stupid the more you think about this movie, man. It's really not good. But anyway, that's If. I'll give it a rental, kind of being nice. It's, watchable only because of really Ryan Reynolds. And yeah, that's it. That's If. We're done.